Let's talk about one of the biggest issues right now in the oil and gas industry, and that is the constant vandalism of oil and gas assets in the Niger Delta. Very recently, the Forcados Terminal was vandalized by militants, Niger Delta Avengers, who say they will continue to do that until their demands are met and until they're heard by the federal government. Now, the federal government has been engaging in dialogue with the militants as well as the Petroleum Ministry, and such conversations have continued, but the security of oil and gas assets is paramount, and so the Nigerian military has promised to continue to man these assets as conversations and dialogue continue between the federal government, the militants and the Petroleum Ministry. But then very recently, just yesterday, Shell says it will not be repairing the Forcados Terminal. Let's talk to Dolapo Oni, who is the head of energy research at EcoBank, to get more on this and get his perspectives as well. Good morning to you, Dolapo.
Good morning, Harriet. Great to have you.
Great to have you on the show. So that's like the biggest sore point for us right now, the Forcados Terminal. It is a very strategic terminal for Nigeria and the NNPC, but how strategic is it? Just for us to get an idea of why we should be having palpitations, because Shell says it will not be fixing that particular terminal.
Okay, thank you for that. Nigeria exports roughly about 20 crude grades, different types of crude, in varying quantities. Among those crude grades that we export, the four largest are Kwaibo, which is roughly about 400,000 barrels per day, Bonny Light, which is also another 400,000 barrels per day, Forcados, which is 300,000 barrels per day, and then we have Brass River as well, and Escravos. Those are pretty much the largest crude grades. Now, based on field maturity and some of the lack of investment we have seen in the last few years, a lot of these other crude grades have declined. But Forcados remains one of the major crude grades that is similar to Bonny Light in terms of the sweetness and the lightness. So usually when you can't get Bonny Light or Kwaibo in the market, the next category you typically fall on is Forcados. Another thing why it's important is really because most of the Nigerian independents who bought assets from Shell actually bought assets that were linked to the Forcados terminal as well. So it's not only just Shell that's affected now, but most of our Nigerian independents as well are equally affected by this downtime.
So Shell now says that it will not be repairing this particular terminal. And it seems as if we're going to be having a major colossal loss, because it's going to definitely affect our global market share. But why do you think that Shell says it will not be repairing this particular terminal? It cited security as one of the issues.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, think about it. Forcados was the first pipeline that was damaged in February. And when it was attacked in February, we really didn't pay any attention to it because we thought it's a small issue, just a leak and all that. And then later when it was discovered that it was really a sophisticated attack, and then the government started participating in discussions over the repairs. Repairs didn't start until April. And they had gone to a long extent as of June in getting the repairs done, because it's a major, it was a really sophisticated attack for which they had to literally shut down all operations and get the repairs done. And then, come on, just before you commission, it was supposed to come online this June, towards ending of June, and then another attack happens. So, and for now, from what I'm hearing from the industry, it looks like they are also carrying the bulk of that repairs as well in terms of the cost. Because we all know NNPC has financial issues at the moment, considering oil production and oil prices.
But if Shell is carrying the bulk of fixing this, and like you just rightly pointed out, the NNPC also seems to be having funding challenges, what do you think the federal government should be doing at this time? They're paying attention, most definitely, because they're having talks and dialogues already with the Niger Delta militants to try to, address the challenges and the issues that they've brought up. But what should the federal government be doing right now? Because this is a very critical terminal for us. It is what actually, makes our global market share as impressive as it is.
Yes, it does. Well, I think the federal government is actually still taking the right steps at the moment. They've intensified dialogue. They are talking on all fronts to parties, various parties in the Niger Delta. I'm not sure they've gotten across to the Niger Delta Avengers themselves yet in terms of the dialogues, but I think that the dialogue should be sustained. Then we've held a ceasefire because typically if you are in this kind of negotiations, there should be a ceasefire. So I understand that is happening, but we need to increase the presence of security forces around, essentially around those pipelines, those key pipelines, those key places. Because what they damaged, for instance, in the last attack was a 48-inch pipeline, which is a major trunk line. So we can't protect all the smaller pipelines. We can't protect all the various joining pipelines and the likes, but at least the major trunk lines that will receive the bulk of the crude can be protected well. So it might just be a case that after the 2-week ceasefire, we increase security forces and ensure that there's more protection for Shell's workers and their staff.
But before we get to that, why when we get to a situation where, for instance, we begin to see a kind of a temporal win-win situation? Because Shell, for all intents and purposes, wants to go ahead and continue work on that particular pipeline. Yes, we have security that will man the pipelines along with them and protect them. But these are also Nigerians who also have, well, yes, they say that they'll lay down their lives for the country and the rest of it. But we have to, as much as possible, aside from protecting the infrastructure and the other asset, we have to protect the human assets as well. So, do you think, for instance, that maybe somewhere repair work is already ongoing, but this has been thrown out as like a decoy to, stave off a possible attack and keep people away from there, so you can protect not just the infrastructure, but you protect the assets, and you also protect the human assets that you have manning and working on that particular place?
Well, I don't know if that's possible. I mean, that would be a bit of a that would be a good decoy strategy anyway to say that and push that kind of information out there. Because I think for the oil companies, their human assets are what they prioritize the most in terms of protection. And you will notice that if you talk to a lot of people that have been working with Shell in that region, there's been very strict surveillance and protection around movement for staff and the likes. So yes, they pay attention to it, but I don't know if that's what they're doing currently. It's possible. I mean, it's doable.
Okay, so now that we have kind of slowed down this foreclosure, if you'd like to call it, on repairs by Shell at the Forcados Terminal, how much would this affect our production, our daily production? We're down about 1.1 million barrels per day, or has this changed?
Oh, yeah, it has. For most of the other fields that were attacked, part of what NMPS, the government has been doing behind the scenes is to ensure that repairs have started immediately as soon as possible. So, for instance, Kwa Ibo wasn't really an attack. It was just a rig accident. That one is back online. Bonny Light is also back online. Kwa Ibo is back online. Brass River is back online. So as we speak today, we're somewhere in the region of 1.6, 1.7. And if you count condensates as well, which are also online as well, we are probably around 1.7 million barrels per day already as we speak today. And that's why Kachukwu mentioned it at the OPEC meeting last week as well, that we're about 1.6. So what we really need to come online really at the moment is Forcados. And then we had the ENI pipeline also that was attacked last week that took another 140. So between the Forcados and the ENI pipeline, we probably still have about 400,000, 450,000 barrels per day offline at the moment. And then again, there was a Chevron attack this morning.
So how much has that now cost us if we had a Chevron attack this morning?
No, the Chevron attack was not on a major field. We don't have any numbers yet on that, but I don't think it's going to cost us more than 10 or 15,000 barrels per day.
Oh, well, but then it seems as if the global market is actually benefiting from the woes that we're experiencing in the Niger Delta. Oil prices are trending higher this morning, trading at around,
about $51.
About $51. That's a remarkable price high for 2016. That's the first we've seen in 2016. In fact, that's the first we've seen in about 8 months.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think it's good because if the market sustains this, And it's driven not just by Nigeria, it's also driven by the fact that the dollar is also weakening at the moment, because everyone is aware now that there's no likelihood that US will be taking a rate hike in June, which was a bit of a worry before. So now that there's not that likelihood, people are trading off the dollar, and the dollar is weakening. So that's also pushing prices as well. But the comfort is that if Nigeria is able to get its barrels back online, then we can actually benefit from this $50 oil price. The key worry will be the likes of Canada, if they return their production back to the market, and then the likes of Libya, who are also achieving some sort of stability and ramping up production to get back to their 1 million barrels per day.
Dolapo, always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you so much this morning for your perspectives.
Thanks for having me.